Hello, good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Metapod, the Pokemon TCG podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. This is episode 86,
Yes.
I think. I hyped up last week that I knew what episode it was, and then as I was doing that like little intro spiel, I remembered that I didn't know what episode it was this time around. So I made it back-to-back weeks though. Sean, how are you doing? How has your week been?
My week and weekend have been lovely. It was my partner's birthday, so I am coming into this. Like, I saw some stuff on Twitter, but otherwise, I've been very out of a loop on all things Pokemon, Digimon, everything. Like, I all I got was Twitter. That was my source of news, was random tweets. So Jake may take the lead in explaining some of the things that I read about.
Twitter is really like, Twitter is my like trusted with quotation marks, but is like my news source as well, because you could just go on and you can see like 50 tweets in a span of like 3 minutes, and then boom, you already know at least like a baseline knowledge of things, right? Like, obviously you don't go to Twitter to learn, every single little detail about everything, but you can get kind of a gist of like what's going on at any point in time just from looking at Twitter. But I got to open up a Brilliant Stars box on Friday, Sean.
Okay, what did you pull? What were your pulls?
It was not provided by the Pokemon companies, sadly. If you want to make it to the next TCG set, for me, I'm all ears. But I pulled some good stuff. I pulled Cynthia's Ambition Full Art.
Okay,
which was
nice.
one of the chase cards. Specifically the full art and not the rainbow, so that made it even better, because if you know me, I collect all the full art supporters. So getting mommy, like, is definitely bonkers. And then I got a Sylveon VMAX like alternate art from the trainer gallery.
Yeah, that's a great one.
It was so pretty. And then also like my Vs and stuff were all like playable Vs.
Nice. You didn't get like Simisear or whatever.
No, I didn't get a Simisear or anything like that. Like I got playable stuff. Now, obviously, I didn't get any Arceus playable stuff, but like, I got some Raichus, I got some Entei, some Whimsicott, like pretty decent like pulls. So I was pretty happy with the box. It was super exciting to open because of the trainer gallery hits, like the character rares, the trainer gallery cards.
Yeah.
And then just the regular ones on top of that. It was like a 12-hit box.
That's great. That's like, so did you get any V-Stars at all?
I did not get a single V-Star actually in my box, which was kind of surprising.
That's kind of weird. Yeah.
But I also got a rainbow supporter. I got 2 full art supporters. I got the Sylveon V alternate art. I got a Raichu V full art. Like I still had like good pulls.
2 full art supporters and a rainbow supporter. As somebody who collects full art supporter cards, I'm sure that was pretty dope.
Like every box I open, I try to get a full art supporter. So like I was pretty stoked. And like the V Stars, aside from Arceus, which right now in TCG Player is like a $40 card market price wise, like Shaman V-Star, $4. Charizard V-Star, $27, which is honestly kind of lower than I thought. Whimsicott V-Star, $3. So like I'm not even that mad that I don't even have, like I didn't get a V-Star,
Yeah.
Because
there's really only one.
Expensive.
Yeah, there's only one that you're like looking to get, and if you pull one, that's great. It saves you a little bit of money, like the Arceus, but you still need to buy the others.
Yeah, like it was a good box. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I think that's pretty cool.
We're going to talk a lot about the good here on the Metapod podcast today, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the bad, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the ugly. But you know what, Sean? Let's get this out of the way. We hyped it up last week. Pokemon TCGLive Beta was out. If you were in Canada or you had a VPN to move yourself
Jake,
to. Sorry.
Do you want to do the review? That review.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. And man,
you're the review man today.
We got a comment on the recent Metapod, YouTube video, because we have our own YouTube channel now, the Metapod Podcast, we got a comment that said the best transition ever. And I was trying to follow that up with another great transition, and then all of a sudden I messed it up.
You did yourself in with that one.
I'm getting a little bit too in my head. But anyways, as always, we are trying to do the 5-star reviews every single week here on the Metapod Podcast. Reminder that once we hit 100 ratings over on Apple iTunes reviews, if you listen to the podcast that way, please leave a review. It doesn't have to be a 5-star. It could be 1 through 5, any of those, whatever you truthfully think this podcast deserves. Once we hit 100 ratings, Sean and I are going to start doing extra content on the YouTube channel, which we've said it a couple of times before of what it could be, so I won't try to tell you all about that now. But this week's 5-star review comes from Jays817. The title and both the message are very simple, Sean. The title is just 3 fire emojis. Just fire, fire, fire. And you know what? I'm all about the fire emoji. I love keeping it hot, and I was going to say humid, but that didn't really work.
I like keeping it. Oh, God, no.
Keeping it hot and humid here on the Metapod Podcast. Anyways, this 5-star review said, solid Pokemon podcast. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Jay, for the wonderful review. And thank you all to the listeners of the Metapod Podcast, whether you are reviewing for us, whether you're just listening every single week, whether that's Apple, Spotify, YouTube. What other platforms are there?
Pocket Cast. That's my preferred.
Cast.
Yeah.
Any
Google.
of those. What did you say?
Google Cast if you're on Android.
Google Cast.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Sean is the tech savvy one of this relationship. So like he knows where everyone's at. He knows what countries we're in, things like that. And
the analytics are wild. So
yeah, he is the all-knowing, and I'm just the dingus on the cast. But Sean, the Pokemon trading card game live beta is out right now, as I mentioned earlier. So last week we talked about you could play the beta of the new upcoming Pokemon trading card game client called Pokemon Trading Card Game Live if either you were in Canada or you had a VPN to kind of put yourself in a Airbnb for a little bit in Canada, if you know what I mean. If you don't know what a VPN is, it basically spoofs your location. So then people have a harder time like tracking you down in terms of like internet wise. It's a little bit safer, and also I think you like selling data of your
it's
like searches and stuff.
Like advertisers won't necessarily know all the correct information about you. So
yeah, you're not going to get those weird Wish ads that, you know, you wouldn't want your mom looking over your shoulder and seeing, if you've ever seen the wish.com ads or whatever. But anyways, the Pokemon trading card game live beta came out, and there were several notable people playing it. So there wasn't like a ton of people playing it because, you know, it's exclusive to either Canada or having a VPN, which is a small audience and a small audience already of the Pokemon trading card game that plays the competitive side. But if you are on Twitch or YouTube, you will have seen people like Azul, Tricky Jim. You will have seen YouTube videos from many other content creators potentially showcasing the Pokemon trading card game live beta. And Sean, how much were you able to get some you said you got a lot of your like news and stuff from Twitter, right? About the client?
Yeah, I got a lot of news. I did peep a couple of like videos, like to some degree, talking about the client and things. So I do have I didn't play the client. Jake and I, neither of us got on. We did not do the VPN route. We didn't. Yeah, we were not like uploading lots of deck profiles, so we didn't feel the need to go into it immediately. But we both have seen a lot of stuff, so we can give our opinions and also give what the community seems to be feeling about the client as well.
So, Sean, since you were browsing Twitter a good chunk, what do you feel the community opinion was about the trading card game client?
Honestly, if I had to pick one word, to describe the overall sentiment. Now, this is not to say that it is bad, but I would say the single word that would describe it best is probably disappointment.
That's the exact word that I was thinking of.
Yes. And that's not to say that people are not optimistic. That's not to say people are being overly critical or think that it's actually like disappointment and bad are two different things. You could be disappointed because you expected more, but that doesn't mean that it's bad, right? But I think, and this is one of the, I think maybe we even talked about this, Jake, like there was a lot of, I think, too much hype about the client going into its beta release. Like, I think people were just excited that Pokemon was doing anything with an online client that would, like, you know, suggest that they're putting more effort, more money, all that stuff into it. So maybe people built it up in their head, like what it would look like, what it would be. But I think in reality, it's starting off as kind of a facelift, if you will, on PTCGO, the current client. It's largely a facelift with some major changes. In particular, like the card crafting system is a pretty major change. But otherwise, everybody was like super stoked. I'll give one example, Jake, and we can talk about this. The ranked ladder, right?
Yes.
You know, we heard from Pokemon originally that there would be some sort of a ranked ladder, which people were like, oh my God, is this going to be like the VGC? Or is it going to be like, you know, Arena or Hearthstone or whatever, the other games that have ranked ladders? But in reality, the ranked ladder really is mostly just the current ladder system on PTCGO, with the actual downside currently of not actually pairing people that much based on their elo, their like ranking.
Yeah. And that you can still go backwards.
Yes.
At a certain point. Like once you get to a certain rank on the ranked ladder, right? Because they have different tiers of like, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but for hypothetical purposes, let's just say Pokeball, Great Ball, Ultra Ball, Master Ball. It's like, I think it's like Great League, Ultra League, stuff like that. But let's just go the Pokeballs, because that's the easiest for a lot of Pokemon fans to understand. Once you, for instance, make it to hypothetically Great Ball tier, right, you can start going backwards when you lose. I don't think you can fall out. No, you can fall out of Great Ball. But like while you're in Pokeball, the first tier, you will not go backwards for any time you lose, which is interesting in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense though. It's like it's a very forgiving system. It's just like, hey, you're at the earliest stage, we'll get you to the next stage, and you can go back to the earliest stage, but you can't, like, there's nowhere to go back from, right? Like you're at the bottom. So it's like fine. I don't know. I personally think that this is one area where it's frustrating for people who are expecting a fully built out ranked ladder right now, but it is beta. There are a very limited number of players. And from what I've been hearing, there are a lot of people who maybe have had a tough time finding opponents, depending on when they're online, or there's maybe like, I think a glitch in the system as well in terms of like pairing.
I think it's a combination of both. I also think that sometimes if you have a VPN, right, like just trying for the client to work with that VPN sometimes can cause like a little hiccup and maybe the glitch. Because I think most of the people that I have seen who have expressed they've had trouble finding an opponent are people that don't live in Canada. So not to say that, you know, people in Canada that are truly in Canada, like don't have an issue, but I think maybe it's a little bit, it might be a little bit connected. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
But I mean, like the ladder, in my opinion, like sure, the rewards are great on the ladder, but I remember seeing like, it was like the upper tiers of the battle pass. You know, because the battle pass is like kind of if you've ever played games like Apex, Unite, things like that, you kind of know what a battle pass is. Like the more that you play, the more rewards that you will unlock, things like that. Think of like the current PTCGO reward system that's basically like a free battle pass. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like for every win, for every objective or mission that you complete, you get, you know, some lightning bolts, we'll call it, and then it goes up through the battle pass. And after every X amount, you know, you'll get a reward. It's like the upper tiers of the battle pass rewards. Like one of them is just one single like chilling rain pack.
Well,
And
I think that's, yeah, I think partly that's because you earn a lot more rewards throughout the battle pass, you know, and I mean, you're going to earn a lot of crystals, I want to say it is, that you can use to redeem for packs as well. I think, can you redeem crystals for packs?
I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
What I'm trying to say though is like, I don't know. I feel like for an upper tier pass, you know, I'm investing all of this time and all of this play into the game. Like why in the upper third, upper fourth of completing the battle pass am I just getting a single chilling rain pack? Like I would rather get the same amount of credits, in my opinion. I mean, that's just my opinion, but
I mean,
you know, I'd rather get some packs or like a couple crystals or I don't know. I mean, or like a good card.
I think what they will do, the good thing about this is it may be that when they launch properly, that the battle pass, like they use people's feedback and they also will know how much people are playing to understand, hey, is this battle pass currently the way it's structured? Is it enough incentive for people to play regularly? And to your point, they may find that a random pack, you know, at level 40 is just not enough. And then they'll change it. And, you know, so I think that one is very easily addressed. I think it's a fair point, though, that like, you know, hey, you could maybe up the...
It doesn't feel like good incentive, but I do like the idea of the battle pass. You know, I do like the ladder and, you know, the premium and the regular. I think it was the free regular battle pass was the newest set packs. And then the premium was like kind of other sets alongside it. Cause you'll gain, if you buy the premium battle pass, you will gain both.
Yes. And what I will say, the one thing that is important to note, if you have crystals, if you're doing this, it seems like every time they do a new battle pass season, the premium will give you a free deck, an entire deck. So like, I think this time it was it Single Strike Urshifu or was it Mew VMAX?
I don't actually remember, but I do remember on one of the rewards in the battle pass there was a Mew VMAX, so maybe it was the Mew VMAX one.
I mean, point being, like there are at least one, maybe two entire decks. Now they're not going to be like perfectly optimized, but like getting a Mew VMAX deck is wild. It's just
just like getting Mew VMAX cards in general.
Yeah, and you just get them for playing the game. So like, if you are, and this was my concern, if you're a new player, this battle pass actually seems super valuable because it's like, hey, here's an entire deck that is actually mildly competitive, right? And when you get more credits, you can make the deck a little bit better, but you don't need to build something from scratch in order to actually progress, which like, that's huge, right? Like, that was my concern. It's like, if you're a new player getting into this and you don't have any packs, any credits, anything, you're just going to be stuck in the bottom tiers because your deck is trash. But yeah, I will give them credit for that. So that's a good, you know, next to the bad of the rest of the pass system being like, eh.
Let's keep talking about things that the client gives you and talk about the starter decks. So at the beginning of the game, when you start up, the game will give you like 9 starter decks. And these are pre-built decks that, Sean, I don't know if you've seen some of them, but they're actually like pretty good. Like some of the decks, like one of them is a Zacian and Zamazenta deck, which is actually pretty competitive. One of them is like a single strike deck, which is pretty okay. And there's also another deck that has the Inteleon engine. So the Shady Dealings Inteleon with, I think, some quick shooting in it as well.
Yeah.
But overall, you can check out the 9 decks. I think Celios put together a video. Celios Network put together a video going over the 9 decks of the thing, and like I think maybe he talked about upgrading them, kind of like little spurts of like, here's how you could upgrade it real quick. But point being, if you are a new player and you get these 9 decks, you are instantly way better off starting out going on the competitive scene in terms of against other players in the queue of the client than you would be on the Pokemon trading card game online, right? Like you had mentioned that with the battle pass, you know, you're getting these cards and stuff, so then you're not automatically trash if you're a new player, you know, at the very beginning and you're stuck at the bottom levels. These starter decks are the exact same way. Like I remember on day 1, you know, Azul was queuing up a whole bunch on the ranked ladder, and he queued up a bunch against these like starter decks. It was basically just like a copy and paste of the starter deck. So people had just started the game and, you know, were working with upgrading their starter decks. And yeah, I mean, Azul is a great player. And so obviously he's very good. And he converted his whole, he migrated his whole thing. So he has all of his cards and can build all the decks. But you know, some of those decks put up a good fight. And if you were to come up against a person like me or Sean, right up on there with your starter deck, like you got a shot to win. Like those decks gave you a shot to win in the ranked ladder, even against like really good players. So I am super impressed with, you know, the introduction side. In terms of the Pokemon trading card game online client, like introducing the game and getting people into the game and potentially getting them to stick, because at least in terms of what you're getting, we'll talk about more of why I clarify what you're getting. But in terms of what you're getting at the beginning, like you are way more likely to stick around and stay, in my personal opinion, because you're gonna win more, I feel like, than you would online on the old client.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the current client. I don't know if any of you listening have maybe started recently and can more easily remember what it was like to go into PTCGO with no packs, no cards, no nothing. Boy, howdy. I remember I was playing some really whack stuff when I started. Because like I didn't really know if I wanted to invest all this money to like trade for these cards or whatever, or in the case of Live, invest all this money in codes to like get credits, right? So yeah, you're starting them off, and I hope that Pokemon, because it's now being run in-house, adds to the starting deck pool every set or every couple of sets, right? If it's like twice a year, I think that's still fine. Because what you don't want to happen is like, I'm sure like on PTCGO, have you played against like the trainers, the various trainers in the early game recently?
I have. It's all like expanded, like X and Y type decks.
And so like the decks you get, you can't even play the majority of those cards in standard. And you're just like, what is this nonsense? Like it makes no sense. So as long as they keep it up, huge win. I think I'm with you, Jake. That's a huge win in my book. So.
What I will say, though, what's not a huge win is how the client looks in game. And for a lot of the other things, I think the appearance of the Pokemon trading card game Live is the bad and is the ugly that we referenced earlier. Especially on PC, I think it was built. I mean, I think this is just the lesson all around. This game was built for mobile. There is so much dead space in this client. To give you a good example of what that means of dead space for any listeners, think of like your computer desktop.
Do you have an image that you want to send me and then I can put it up? If you don't, it's fine. I'm just...
Yeah, I don't have an image, but think of like your computer desktop. So on your computer desktop, you have your icons, right? You know, your internet browser, your library, your trash can, things like that. Take all of those icons off except one. Take all those icons off except one thing and put it smack down in the middle. That's what it looks like opening packs on the Pokemon trading card game live. You are opening packs and the cards are insanely small, right? Like and there's just a lot of dead empty space like surrounding the screen and it just looks bad.
Yeah.
Like I was watching Andrew Mahone open a bunch of different packs and it wasn't exciting. Like it was a new set that came out that day. And I mean, he wasn't really excited. People in chat weren't really excited. I mean, because you can't really see the cards.
Yeah. They also...
And you can't zoom in on them either or anything like that.
I will say they did implement a bit of what I would call, quality of life, which is like you can open...
No, they took away quality of life. And anyways, you do your point and then we'll get into that.
Well,
Sorry.
The quality of life point I'm making is like for people who want to open 10 packs at once. So they still have the problem of you can only upload 10 codes of the same pack at a time, which is super annoying. Because if you have like 100 codes that you want to import or whatever, it takes time. But you can open up 10 packs at once now. So you don't have to open up every pack and see all the reveals and whatever. You don't have to do that. You can like open them all and then just sort of skip it and all the cards are now. So you can open them up in batches. That's one quality of life. Obviously, if you want to like see all the cards, everything being tiny on the screen, yeah, that's pretty lame.
And I get it. Like, I mean, it just looks like it's made for mobile.
Yeah.
The packs as well. This is kind of an interesting thing that I was a little bit hesitant at first, but then I kind of grew to it when I started thinking about it more. So in the Pokemon trading card game online, the old client, when you open a pack, you get the normal set of cards like you would IRL. Like you get 10 cards in the pack. In the Pokemon trading card game live, if you heard Sean earlier say this but maybe missed it, you only get 5 cards in a pack. You just get the uncommons, I believe, and the reverse and rare, something like that. Well, fact of the matter is you only get 5 cards, right? So obviously like half the cards are missing from the old client opening. And at the beginning, I was like, what the heck? Like, why can't I get, 10 cards in the pack? Like, I was kind of off put by that. But then I started thinking about it and I remembered the dusting system.
Mm-hmm.
And with the dusting system, based on the rarity, it costs like X amount or things like that. And, dusting commons and uncommons specifically, because those are the cards that are missing in your packs, just some commons and uncommons, those are really easy to dust. And if you want players to get introduced to the dusting system, you want players to get used to the dusting system, the best way to do that is to try to get them to dust, the commons and uncommons, I will say. There's not usually too many different rarities of the commons and uncommons, right? It's not like an Arceus V that has like 5 different arts, on release weekend. You're trying to get a Bidoof, which is either regular or reverse hollow, which either way, that is not that much. So I thought it was kind of cool that a way to introduce kind of more the dusting system was to use commons and uncommons. But it was a little off-putting to first see only like 5 cards in a pack.
Interesting. I didn't know that they did that. That's because the only packs I saw
cards in a pack.
The only packs I saw open were celebrations packs, which only ever have 5 cards in a pack.
Oh yeah, it's the whole thing. It's all the packs.
That's
all the packs are
weird.
just 5. But I also thought about this too, like, so when you get extras of a card, right? When you have more than 4 copies in your game of a specific card, it automatically gets turned into currency.
Yeah.
Credits. It automatically gets turned into credits. It would be very fast to go and get credits of like commons and uncommons because you have extras, right? I opened up one booster box of Brilliant Star IRL and I got my full playset of Minchinos plus extras, right? And that's a common card. So I guess maybe they also weren't trying to like overload people with credits, making it, they might have thought that, okay, you have to work just a little bit more in order to get the currencies you want to be able to consistently craft and make the bigger, better cards that you need in your deck, which I thought was kind of interesting. And when we'll kind of transition it to this part, I think the ecosystem, the economy, the ecosystem, there are animals living in the Pokemon trading card game live. But I think the economy in the game is actually really, really good, in my personal opinion. It's obviously better probably if you migrate and you've been playing the card game online on the old client like Sean and I have. So we'll probably have a much easier transition into live. But I feel like if you start from nothing, like we had a kind person, I won't say their name because I don't know if they want their name said. We had a kind person reach out to us on Twitter and say, should I wait to like use these codes for live, or should I put them in online? And, you know, obviously they don't have like online stuff like Sean and I do, you know, just starting, but I feel like you're going to be okay. Like, I don't think you're going to struggle and hate your life for the first 3 months if you start from nothing on the Pokemon trading card game live. I feel like the output of credits is at least really good. Now, I'm not 100% sure of the other two currencies.
I mean, crystals and coins. I think coins are all aesthetics, and crystals you use for like the battle pass, which all of that, you will have plenty of that even as a new player if you just play through the battle pass, is what it feels like. So if you play through a battle pass, you will have enough crystals for the next battle pass, and ad infinitum. You will always have enough. So that I don't think is the concern, to your point. But I don't know. I'm like, the economy is a little less worrying than I originally thought. I think that it heavily advantages existing players because
100%. Oh, no doubt.
I think if they didn't have good starter decks or good decks that you got on the battle pass, I would be much more concerned because, you know, having those two means you also are probably going to have most of the trainer cards that you might want. You probably already have just because of the starters and the battle pass stuff, right? So you're not having to necessarily waste, you know, credits on quick balls or ultra balls or switches. And that, you know, as a new player in PTCG, the current client, if you're really starting off, you have to waste kind of a not insignificant number of trades unless you've bought like a trainer's toolkit code card. You have to like waste a not insignificant number of codes and time just trading for like random trainers here and there. And it's annoying. So this system I think is much better for that. I do think what will happen though is code cards for the only code cards that will be worth anything will be the code cards for the most current set, because you could just pull the card that you want to get in credits probably, right? Like that's probably going to be the most common. And then the code card for the smallest set with the highest number of rarities of like
it's basically just like holiday sets,
right? And
like
so
the ones where you guarantee like a holo rare in every pack.
Exactly. So and also the smallest, because we talked about this when we talked with Mark as well. We said like, hey, a strategy is probably going with the smallest set possible so that you can have 4 copies of every card in the set as quickly as possible. And that is exactly the strategy that every PokeTuber that I have seen use. Is Celebrations is a tiny set. You can get 4 of all those cards very easily and very quickly. And so every pack you open is like, you get to dust everything. Which like, I think he was, oh man, sneeze. I think Trainer Chip did an interesting video where he was getting about 7,900 credits for every 10 packs of Celebrations, assuming that he had every card as a 4 copy, which he did. And so like 7,900 credits, if you look at the system, will get you like, you know, I think it would probably be like almost 8 VMAXs, which is great. Like, okay, cool. Like that's a whole deck basically in terms of credits. So I do think it pigeonholes you into the kinds of sets, and it does force players to like, hey, I'm going to need you to commit to getting a play set of every card in the smallest set possible if you want to maximize your credits. So I'll still be interested to see when the thing launches publicly, if code card prices for certain sets really goes way up, and if that kind of throws the benefits of the economy on one side like kind of off, like all of a sudden celebration codes are like $3 each, and like, well, that's not going to be useful.
I will say, I don't know if you know this, but I think it's noteworthy to say that in the client, you can only open up 400 packs of a set. So with celebrations, like you're saying, you can only open in the client 400 packs of celebration, and then it cuts you off. It says you cannot open anymore. Now, for most all sets, I feel like if you open 400 codes, you're probably good. Like, you probably got everything that you could ever want in that. You definitely have at least one of every card.
Yeah.
You know, you probably have, I would say, 2 copies of at least every single card.
Yeah.
Because you think about it, 36 codes is a booster box.
Yeah.
So 400, I'm not good at math, but I know that's a lot of booster boxes.
It's like 9 or so booster boxes. So it's like, yeah, that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I guess no, that would be like over 10 booster boxes for 400 codes. Yeah.
Yeah, like, so again, I don't know. I mean, I don't think in the grand scheme of things it's going to affect really anybody, but if you play a ton and you use your credits to buy packs or, you know, like through rewards and stuff, you may hit like a cap in a set in the near future. I mean, I don't know. It's just, it was an interesting tidbit that I thought was kind of worth noting.
I will say one thing that's funny, Jake. I just checked Potown Store for their celebrations codes because, you know, everybody who's playing on it, that's what they're doing is getting celebrations, and they're all out of stock celebrations codes.
Yeah, I mean, I saw on Twitter that basically everywhere was out of stock of at least celebrations codes.
So
I will say, Sean, the client, in terms of gameplay, so, you know, actually playing the game, this will kind of be, I think, the final thing that we'll talk about of the client before we move on. The client does not make me feel like I'm having fun playing the game. Does that make sense?
I mean, how does it compare to PTCGO?
I would rather play PTCGO. I would rather, like, in terms of the actual, bless you, in terms of the actual game, I would rather play PTCGO. Like, okay, the only, like, great thing I really feel like with the gameplay that they've done on the Pokemon trading card game live is that they have, when you move a Pokemon to the active, they have this like little animation that pops up of like, you know, if it's a water type, it'll like have a surge of water, you know. It's like kinda a cool thing. Like, I think that's cool. Pretty colors, you know, but there's a lot of other things in the client that I just hate. So for instance, damage counter placements. If you're playing something like Dragapult VMAX, you manually have to drag a damage counter over to the Pokemon that you want to put it on. You have to manually drag every single damage counter, right? You can't just click them like on PTCGO and boom, there's one. You have to click, grab down on your side, drag all the way to the other side, put a Pokemon, and drop it there.
I mean,
and there's a like quality of life in general while playing the trading card game live client is awful. You know, here's one thing that you probably never thought of, Sean. Here's one thing that you probably never thought of that I noticed instantly.
Yeah.
When you play the Pokemon trading card game online and you have one prize left to take and you take a KO, you know, what happens in the game?
I think it just ends the game and you get the end screen immediately, right?
Yes, it takes the prize automatically because it literally
the game is
doesn't
over.
matter. It literally doesn't matter what the prize is. You're going to take it no matter what, right? And it ends the game. On PTCG Live, if you're in that same situation, you have one more prize left to take, and then you take a knockout, you have to manually take the prize, or else the game will not end. You have to manually take the prize.
That seems a bit silly.
It is I have never been so enraged about losing a piece of life, a quality piece of life. I never realized how fortunate I was for the game to take that final prize for me. Also, when you're taking a prize, you get flashbanged, Sean. It's like you're playing Call of Duty and someone throws a flashbang at you. When you take a prize, there is this fluorescent, bright white and green screen that just pops up out of nowhere when you take a prize. And it's like, where's the epilepsy warning? I mean, there's a huge, like, it's terrible. Like, I don't want to look. When Azul or Andrew or Sack or anybody playing live is taking a prize, like, I look away from the screen.
You're like, I don't want to see it. It's too bright.
Yeah, like, because I'm going to be blinded. Like, there's so many, like, little things about it. So, like, when you quick ball something and you search through your deck, right, for a quick ball, on the Pokemon trading card game online, the old client, the deck will automatically place everything that you can grab in the front and highlight it to be able to take, and then it'll have everything else in the back, so you could very easily.
And it's grayed out. It's like grayed out a little bit.
Yeah, it's just like it basically signifies, hey, you can't take this with a quick ball, but this is what you've got in your deck.
Yeah.
On Trading Card Game Live, for anyone who does not know, when you quick ball for something, there are basically two tabs that pop up. There is the tab that says, boom, this is what you can grab, and it only shows you what you can grab.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like, I get it. You know, on mobile, you don't want your phone to process even more things, you know, and load up all of those images. But there's a second tab that pops up all. So if you want to do a deck search and you want to look through like every single card of your deck, you have to click that all tab. You can't, like, the default pop-up is just the stuff that you can take. And then also on the online client, the old client, it will like smush all your cards together to make it as short as possible. So like if I have 3 research in the deck, it's going to say research 3, right?
Yeah.
But on live, it like lists every single card individually. It doesn't condense them together, which is terrible in my opinion. Like, I'm never gonna look for what prize. I know that mimics like a real game, right? Like a real game is just gonna be a clump of cards, but part of the beauty of the online client, just quality of life, in my opinion, was having things condensed.
I mean, I will say, like, the point you made about mobile, I think you know why certain things are the way they are. The other points, like the damage counter, the taking the prize, they clearly have made a decision, at least for now, we'll see if it changes, that they want to mimic IRL actions, right? Placing a damage counter manually is kind of what you do IRL, as opposed to, like, you know, and then taking the last prize. You do have to take your last prize manually.
Here's my combat point. If you've ever watched IRL, people don't really take the last prize, right? Because your opponent basically knows.
It's like, okay, you got it.
GG's. And so you just shake hands, and it's very rare that the opponent actually takes the final prize. But I know what you mean. I understand what you mean, and it's a valid point.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, the weirdest thing, and we'll move on to some Brilliant Stars meta, but real quick, all of the cards of your opponent's side face you. That is weird. That is super, and I know that's just probably like people get used to it, but like that does not mimic online.
Bless you,
Lord. That does not mimic IRL play at all, and it also really screws with confusion. Because like confusion, you turn a card upside down, facing you.
Bless you again.
And like the fact that everything faces you is just, it throws me off. It's very strange. I'm like, this is not how, not just Pokemon, this is not how any card game works.
Yeah.
No card game IRL, like, that's okay. Anyways, do you want to get to the brilliant stuff?
If we're mimicking what an IRL game would look like, you know, you mentioned it earlier, like putting damage counters, you know, searching through the deck, taking prizes. If we're mimicking the game, you can't have that, you know, cards flipped over. I'm going to go to a locals once IRL events come back, and I'm gonna be getting some kid, some small
Like,
child
flip a
that
thing.
doesn't know and has never played IRL before. That's like, sir, can you flip all your cards around? I'm gonna be like, I know that you're new, but no, like,
That's
I'm
not how this
gonna do
works.
that.
Yeah.
There's the overall, in my opinion, there are a lot of great things about the client. There's a reason that we didn't go over the bugs and things like that,
it's a
because there are
beta.
plenty of bugs. Those can be fixed. It's just the overall aura. When I said, like, it's not fun playing the game. Like, it's not, it doesn't feel as fun.
Interesting.
It doesn't feel as satisfying to play the game, and it's all the more reason why I want IRL events back as soon as possible. So please get your vaccines, wear your mask, be safe, and stop trying to ignore world problems. Anyways, Sean, you know what's not a problem though, is the Brilliant Stars meta. Well, I mean, that's
we don't think it's a problem.
that's up for debate. But if you did not see over on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, any of that stuff, the Full Grip Games not invitational, but the Full Grip
1K.
Games tournaments, like 2K, 1K tournaments that they do every set release weekend, was conducted. And for this one being Brilliant Stars, this is Brilliant Stars card legal. And it was awesome. It was I think it was the biggest, both regular standard format and also GLC format, because they do one each day. The biggest turnouts that they've had yet so far, which is really, really exciting. And we're going to go over a little bit of these results to give you kind of a sneak peek of the meta, and then also from some other tournaments as well. But we'll start off with the Full Grip Games. Just a huge shout out to the Tag Team Podcast. Riley Hubert and JW Creewall they were the MVPs of the Full Grip Games weekend. Riley Hubert ended up winning the standard tournament over at Full Grip Games with Arceus Duraludon VMAX. And although we're not really going to talk about GLC, the Gym Leader Challenge custom fan-made format, JW Creewall won that side with his Dark deck. So shout outs to the Tag Team Podcast. We love them. I've been on the podcast as a guest host. They're a good friends. So shout outs to them. Excellent podcast as well. But Sean, Arceus already showing its dominance in this event. Riley Hubert winning the standard tournament with this Arceus Duraludon deck. And Sean, let me kind of walk you through this deck. So you've got your Arceus V. This is very interesting of a deck, because if you look at a lot of Arceus VMAX decks that are in the rest of this tournament, which we'll kind of go over some of them later, this deck, Arceus Duraludon VMAX and V-Star, have a 4-2 line of Arceus in it. Usually you won't see a full 4 Arceus V in this list, but the main things about Arceus V and V-Star is it wants to do two things. One, it wants to accelerate the energies to Duraludon, right? You basically want your first turn of attacking to almost always be Arceus V. So putting more copies of Arceus V than Duraludon V speak huge volumes of who you want to put as your starter at the beginning of the game and who you want to be using that first attack Trinity Charge, which accelerates energies onto your Pokemon. And then obviously with Arceus V-Star, you want to use Starbirth, the ability, because it's a bonkers ability to do many things. And I mean, this is kind of all, I don't want to say your standard Duraludon VMAX list, just punched in Arceus and Ultra Balls, but that's kind of like what it is, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, this is interesting. So I guess to give people a sense, like, the Arceus V-Star's first attack, Trinity Nova, does 200. One thing that's not featured in the list that we are showing is double turbo energies. So,
yes, that was a mistake on
their part.
Full Grip's part. Yeah. That's sweet. And I mean, credit to them. They had a very, very long 2 days. But yes, if you're watching this on YouTube, you're watching this on even Spotify video, there should be a playset, I believe, of double turbos in this list.
So the idea there, to Jake's point, you want to start your Arceus V, And then if you go first, going second, you can go into the V-Star. You can go and get yourself a double turbo directly with the V-Star ability, right? If you don't have it in hand. And then depending on what else you've got, like if you've already got a way to like set up your Duraludon VMAX the following turn, like you have the Evo, you have the Ultra Ball, maybe you have a Research, whatever, you can either choose to you could go get a Boss's Order and a Choice Belt. So if you're really lucky and you have the V-Star and you have the double turbo in hand and you had an energy attachment the first turn and you've got all your good stuff, you could get the boss and a Choice Belt, and then you could boss up something that has 210 HP relative. I guess it would be doing what, 230 minus 20, so 210. Yeah,
you're right.
Boss up something with 210, which is most V's in the format.
Yeah, I mean, Suicune has 210.
Right.
We'll talk a little bit about Suicune later. Mew has 180.
Yeah.
Genesect, I think, has 190.
So
or
like
170. Either way, it's under 200.
Yeah, so you can like counteract the double turbo, get 2 prizes, set up a Duraludon VMAX for the following turn, and then you're kind of golden. Duraludon VMAX doesn't have any weakness, has 330 HP. It's a beefy one. It does 220 damage, and I believe it's protected from everything with special energies. So it's like now all of a sudden your Mew VMAXs with their Fusion Strike energies not doing a lot. Single Strike energy decks not doing a lot. So as a partner, it feels really a lot like I don't know. It's got Gardevoir Sylveon vibes. Do you remember that Guardian tag team where it's just like I'm gonna focus on just 2 different Pokemon lines. They're both kind of a house in their own respect, and every other card is just there to make that the most consistent game plan, and that's it. And like you're gonna have a hard time taking enough prizes to win before I do, and that's it. That's really all it is. It's wild.
I mean, again, your Duraludon's going to be huge with a base of 330 HP and then a big charm on top of that. And just the consistency of the deck that you can have with Ultra Ball. Ultra Ball, an inclusion in almost every single deck because it is just so good in my opinion. And also, this is something that we'll see a lot more of. We'll talk about my favorite deck coming out of this tournament later. But with Starbirth and Ultra Ball being in this deck, there's the inclusion of a single strike mustard supporter. So if you do not see on Riley Hubert's list that won the full grip, he has a 2-3 line of Duraludon, 2 Duraludon V and 3 Duraludon VMAX. The reasoning for that is, so we talked about, Arceus V-Star having that 200 base damage. Well, with the Choice Belt, it does 230, and especially, if there's a couple decks that can hit that 220 mark that your Duraludon V has. So if you're facing a deck that can hit that potential really easy, and maybe you're afraid of getting your Duraludon V gusted up, with Ultra Ball, and a bunch of other burnable cards like having Quick Balls, Pokegears, things like that, you could actually use Starbirth to create the perfect combo to use Single Strike Mustard and just go ahead and slap a Duraludon VMAX on your bench, automatically skipping the V. Like, that's a total plausible game plan. Now, there's no Lumineon to search out the Single Strike Mustard, but again, you're using Starbirth's ability because you can have V-Star power once per game, and just using Starbirth at any point in the game and finding whatever combo cards you need. So very, very cool idea for Riley and the couple other people that I think played this list. Very, very cool and very, very good, obviously, because it ended up winning the tournament,
Yeah. Jake, I mean, we can go through a lot of other lists. It seems, though, that, like, broadly speaking, dark decks also seem to have a lot of success at this tournament. You had sort of a, Sableye Weezing coming in second, Gengar VMAX coming in third, and then another Weezing Sableye, but more of a single prize focused version.
You had 3 Weezing and Teleon decks inside the top 8.
Yeah. So I
And then
mean,
you had Gengar in third place on top of that. So literally half of the top 8 were dark decks, dark attacking decks.
and I think that's because I'm clicking over here for those watching on YouTube to a overall breakdown of all the decks. I think what you do see is, yes, Arceus V-Star variants, which there are many of. There was 29 of them. So like literally day 1, day 2 of Brilliant Stars being released, and it's already like the second most popular deck. But New
Here's the thing
VMAX.
as well, in the full grip tournaments, they allow Japanese versions. So if you had, if you bought Japanese Arceus V-Star, as long as you like knew what it was,
Yeah.
And you knew what it did, you were allowed to play it. Just for the new cards, I believe. I don't think
Yeah.
you could get like a Japanese version of Octillery unless it was like the character rare Rapid Strike Octillery. But overall, it gives the opportunity for a lot of people to play these like newer decks like Arceus V-Star variants. But, Mew VMAX still very, very good. It did get 2 top 8 finishes in the standard tournament. So, I mean, it was the most popular deck by far. And then, I mean, it still did really, really well despite all of the dark decks that are around.
Yeah. And then if you look at the Rcs breakdown, interestingly, people seem to feel like Ice Rider was like the most interesting partner. There's 9 of those Ice Rider ones, which, I'm not fully sure what the strategy, like why you would pick Ice Rider over Duraludon. Maybe you just want to be able to use what the basic power plant of the format.
I think maybe because with Ice Rider hits just like a little bit more damage than Duraludon, so
I suppose,
like
yeah.
it has a better chance of taking knockouts and fixing math correctly. It did get 13th overall. This was actually somebody that I know, a guy from Indianapolis, Keegan Ives. Love that kid. And it's like a really, really cool deck. I mean, it plays the new Bibarel, right, with the industrious incisors. Once during your turn, you may draw cards until you have 5 in your hand. Very,
Nice.
very cool, especially because we mentioned earlier you have cards that can kind of clear out your hand with Ultra Ball, Quick Ball, things like that to be able to, get as many cards out of your hand as you can. And I mean, again, just with decks being able to go turn 1 Arceus, turn 2 Starbirth, to be able to find all these different pieces is just so good in my opinion. And
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people also, didn't expect to see like a card like Zacian. So Ice Rider Calyrex having that metal weakness typing, people really weren't worried about like facing off against a metal deck. Now, if you did face off against Riley, I will say the Duraludon V is a metal Pokemon.
Yeah.
So that could be a little tricky for that matchup, and Riley wouldn't have to worry about evolving. But either way, I do think it is also a really, I mean, just Arceus V-Star overall. If you take nothing from this like small meta discussion, Arceus V-Star is a really, really cool card that will bring a bunch of different possible variants for you to play that do well.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, and I am looking to buy cards as well, and like Arceus V-Star is still very expensive. It's about $35 to $40 if you want a single copy from most places. But I think that partially that cost is being driven as well. A, this was the first big tournament. B, you have Salt Lake City coming up in a couple of weeks. So the people who are willing to pay those prices will pay them to get Arceus V-Star. So if you're not going to Salt Lake City and you're on a budget, but you still want Arceus V-Star, if you're willing to wait just a little bit longer, waiting till mid-March is probably a great bet for you, because I'm not saying Arceus will be played less, but there will be less demand, because between Salt Lake City and the next regionals, it's like a whole month and a half because Florida got canceled. So, Yeah, that will be a time, I think, to buy if you want to hold out just a little bit.
I will say also that, we're talking about this breakdown of results and things like that. This meta is super underdeveloped.
Yeah.
Right? Like it just happened to be opening weekend where cards were played in this tournament. So like, you may think looking at this top 8, oh my gosh, like it was basically all like decks that we've seen before, Weezing Inteleon, Gengar, Mew VMAX, like but just like let the format develop a little bit. I remember when Fusion Strike format, when Fulgrip did the Fusion Strike format, and Mew VMAX it wasn't everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? It was not nearly as strong performing as it is today because we didn't have Meloetta in builds yet, that like kind of turbo engine. We were still playing like 4 Peony and no Meloettas, but just let it evolve. But Sean, there is one more deck that I want to talk about before,
what is it?
And it is the 16th place deck. This was a creation by Frank Persick and Michael Slutsky. This is an Arceus Flygon deck. Now, Sean, do you recall in the Metapod what we said Flygon V was?
What did we say it was? This 160.
We didn't really talk about it, but because we thought it was kind of bad. Like most other people, other people said that this Flygon was not going to be significant. Now you'll get some content creators that in their videos they said, oh, it's got potential, it just says like, well, who knows?
Yeah.
But I will upfront and admit and say that I didn't think this card was going to be good. And now it's in my favorite deck from this tournament. Flygon V, for anyone who doesn't know, 220 HP basic dragon Pokemon. It has 2 attacks. The first one doesn't matter, so don't worry about it. The second one, for grass, fighting colorless, Draconic Impulse. It was 160 plus, 160 base damage. If your opponent's active Pokemon is a Pokemon VMAX, this attack does 160 more damage and discard 3 energy from that Pokemon. So basically doing 320 base damage, you basically one-shot most, I will say, Pokemon VMAX. And with the additions in the deck list that Michael Slutsky piloted, there are 2 choice belts as well. So 2 little damage modifiers that allow you to hit, quick math, 350 damage on a VMAX, which knocks out everything in the format.
Yeah.
So really, really cool. The idea of this deck, you have Arceus V and V-Star, like most of these other like really, really cool builds that we've talked about. And the idea, again, is to either Trinity Charge from the V or Trinity Nova from the V-Star. Turn 1 Arceus, turn 2 Starbirth to find the different pieces that you are looking for. And this is basically a box deck. Whether you're going to be hitting VMAXs with Flygon at absurd numbers, using the Dunsparce in case there was a lot of Urshifu. Newsflash, there wasn't a lot of top placing Urshifus in this tournament. So maybe if you're moving on to the Salt Lake City Regional and you want to play this deck, maybe you cut out Dunsparce. Maybe you get rid of that card. Maybe it's not worth it because there weren't a lot of Urshifus in the top results. You do have Galarian Zapdos V in case you go up against a Arceus deck, which
or Eternatus.
Or Eternatus, but newsflash, Arceus is a very popular card right now, and I think it'll only get more and more popular. So I think Zapdos is a pretty good addition because you're often pairing Arceus with a bunch of other Vs or VMAXs or V-Stars, whatever. And so Galarian Zapdos is going to be able to hit a very efficient 340 weakness with a low amount of energies. But the coolest part I don't know, Flygon is pretty cool in this deck. But the other coolest part is, if you're watching on YouTube and Spotify, it's kind of covered by my screen. But there's an addition of 2 single strike Beedrills. If you're a fan of the Tricky Gym YouTube channel, you will know that Andrew has held this card, this Beedrill, single strike Beedrill, for many videos. pairing it with a bunch of other things. The Beedrill is a 130 HP stage 2, but don't worry, you'll never put down a Weedle or Kakuna. With one single grass energy, Persistent Sting. If your opponent's active Pokemon has any special energy attached, it is knocked out. So very good against literally anything that plays special energy, which is a ton of things in this format. You do play 3 single strike mustards, which is really, really great for the ability to Starbirth, find that out really easily, or the 2 Lumineon Vs that are included in this list. The Lumineon V, the ability to grab a supporter from your deck, any single one. And I mean, this is just an incredible, fun box deck, Sean. Doesn't play any special energies, only 5 fighting and 3 grass energies, but you are playing 3 training courts for your stadiums. You are playing 2 ordinary rods. So there are a lot of ways to get energies back, I will say. And also Cram-O-Matic, that's another card that I forgot to mention. Cram-O-Matic is another one of those cards that will get you whatever you need, right? Just flip heads, forehead. And so the idea of this box deck is very, very cool in my opinion. It was very awesome to see, you know, power up the Flygon and just hit for an absurd amount of damage and reply. For Slutsky, I think during the Swiss rounds, he was able to set up a like a checkmate board state against his opponent. Was really, really cool to see not only like a powered up Arceus V-Star on the bench, but also a Flygon that was 1 energy away from hitting all that damage. And then also a Beedrill threatening, right, if you played any special energy. It just... there were so many options, and it was just so cool. I assume that this is a little bit harder to pilot because it's kind of a box deck, but it was so cool. It looked so rewarding to play. And another card that you can kind of cut out is the Spiritomb in this list. That's basically like Mad Party counter. But Mad Party wasn't super, super popular as a lot of people were thinking that it could be. So, I mean, the Dunsparce and the Spiritomb, there's like 2 cards that you could potentially cut to change up this deck a little bit for more consistency purposes, more gusting if you want. You know, you're only playing 2 bosses orders. Maybe you put a 3rd one in there, or maybe you put an escape rope in there, or who knows. But it's, I mean, I love this deck. I absolutely love this deck. Like, if PTCGLive were to come out tomorrow, Sean, I would, this would be the first deck that I build. Yeah, this is the first deck that I build.
I mean, yeah, I think this just goes to show you in terms of like a format being very early. This is a box deck. Like the Duraludon deck is a very straightforward deck. Like it's Arceus, it's Duraludon, boom. This, I think, whatever the partners you want for Arceus, you could have Flygon, you could have Zapdos. There could be a whole range of other Pokemon that go in this deck. So like an Arceus V-Star box deck, who knows how that evolves over time, especially as more and more Vs and other things come out too. So that, I think this is a great example of like, if you are a really creative deck builder, Arceus V-Star is kind of your best friend, because yeah, it solves a lot of the inconsistency problems that box decks can have.
I just know that there's going to be a lot of YouTube videos where LDF, you know, pairs like Arceus V-Star with Simisear V, you know, just some weird like combination. But I will say on the deck that we were just talking about, the Flygon deck, if you do want to add a card, taking out the Dunsparce or the Spiritomb, I would maybe like want to try out Peonia. So then if you do notice that, oh, hey, you know, my Galarian Zapdos is prized, or maybe I need another Beedrill and it's prized, you know, you have the ability to go get those cards potentially out of your prizes. So it's cool. I don't know if it's worth it. I obviously haven't tested it because I didn't play in this tournament and I didn't know about this deck before the other day. But I think it'd be a cool idea if you want to explore options. But again, Sean, do you want to talk about kind of the weekend as a whole, or do you want to kind of wait until next week as the meta develops?
I think we can wait until next week, see what the rest of the meta is, because I think we'll get a lot of really interesting results on Limitless as well. But it was exciting to see, I think, how the first sort of large, you know, Brilliant Stars tournament played out, right? Like, Mew VMAX obviously still super popular. I don't think it's going to change. But
No.
because it's just a good deck. I know, without comparison, right? It's just a good deck. But it's nice to see that, like, hey, there are strategies now that can like really counter Mew. And I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for, and that seems to be what we've gotten. So
there's just also like a wide variety of decks that you can play, right? Like you can play this fun box deck and do well. This is also one of the things that we will say, this was a closed deck list tournament. And so the difference that a lot of people may not realize, because maybe you haven't played in like IRL events because you started during the pandemic, you know, some of the reason that a deck like the Flygon deck can do well is people don't really know, especially in the Swiss rounds. You know, maybe once they get in like top 8, top 4, word has gotten around and you kind of know the different cheeky things that they can do. But you don't really know the stuff in an opponent's deck, right? They flip over, you know, they flip over the Galarian Zapdos, right? Maybe Galarian Zapdos was their start at the beginning of the game. You don't really know like what the deck is. You know, you don't know automatically like, oh, this person is playing the Arceus V-Star deck with the 2 Flygons and 2 Beedrills.
Honestly,
right? Like,
honestly, flipping over an Arceus V, you really don't know what you're up against.
Yeah, you have no idea until they play out their turn, and then maybe you have some sort of indication of what it is. But I mean, this is, again, the big thing about these closed deck list formats is surprises like those can come out and just do really, really well. So, I mean, the deck might fall off a little bit because now it doesn't have the surprise factor. People kind of know the archetype of what it is, but I'm hoping that it stays good, because I might think about like buying the cards to build this deck, Sean. I don't know, like, because now I have a job and now I actually like have money. Like, I mean, it is a 3/2 Arceus V-Star though, so maybe like if my buddy Kyle is not for like the indie regional or whatever, if my buddy is not using a full play set, if he's got a play set of V-Stars and he's not using them all, maybe he's got 2 V-Stars that he can lend me, then maybe I'll play this deck.
Well,
but that is all for the Meta Podcast. Again, next week we'll go a little bit more into the depth as the meta develops. We'll talk about a plethora more of tournaments, and you know what? We hope you have a great, fantastic day today. Thank you so much for listening to the Metapod Podcast, Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Make sure to leave a review if you can. Comment on the YouTube videos as well to help push through the algorithm. Metapod Podcast on YouTube. Bye.